Today's guest is an icon of slopestyle, one of the most dominant riders of his era, a two-time Red Bull Rampage champion, X Games athlete, 7 times Crankworx event winner. He is known as one of the greatest slopestyle athletes of all time. He took a little break and then he came back and won again in 2022. I think we all know who we're talking about. It's Brett Rheeder.
How are you, Brett? Mate, thanks for coming in. It's great to have you in. It really is. Thanks so much.
You guys have done your homework. Thanks for having me.
Good intro, wasn't it? Eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Don't mind if I do. Yeah, Brett, how is it being at Crankworx this week?
Oh, it's chill this year. Like, I don't have any events going on. I'm really just here to hang out with everyone.
Are you missing the stress of having an event hanging over you, or are you enjoying not having much to do then?
No, I think this year I've fully detached from Joyride and feeling any guilt from not being up there. Yeah, I think so. This is the first year, and so I'm sort of happy to be here, and it's so good to see all of the athletes that I used to compete with, and all the event people and you guys, and it's just like it's amazing to be around the community.
Yeah. I always think that. With
no pressure,
right? Like it's funny when you're in it. And you feel you're in a bubble, like you don't even realize what's going on. And then you step away and you're like, oh, I didn't even know there was a restaurant over there. Like people are chilling out.
It's crazy. I know. The world is much more vast when you don't have this crazy like slopestyle goal.
And maybe we start there
slopestyle.
Where like explain what slopestyle is, explain kind of for everyone who doesn't know.
And me, maybe. I'm new to slopestyle, man. I am, it's true.
Okay, so slopestyle is like a combination of like BMX and I would say freestyle motocross and maybe even a bit of downhill. We're judged on a slopestyle course, which is made up of drops, jumps, and features that we do tricks on. And so we're judged from top to bottom. And that's what I've put my last 20 years towards.
Whoa, when you put it like that, 2 decades. How old are you now, Brett?
I'm 30 years old.
So you started actually taking care and looking at slopestyle when you were like 9-10 years old. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Were you like, did you start training at that point?
Well, no, definitely not.
Take us through the progression of like 10 years old.
So I would say that when I was around 10 years old, I started getting on pinkbike.com and discovering that there's other people in the world that like doing what I like doing. Like I like jumping off curbs, and my dad would always help me build jumps with his heavy equipment because he owns a demolition company.
No way.
So he'd always.
So you were set up, kind of.
I was set up.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, right?
I was extremely lucky. Yeah, but I would say around 10 years old, I realized that was my thing. That was something that I was better at than my friends and that I really just lived for.
I think that's quite mad for a 10-year-old to have that understanding about himself. For sure. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure. And I remember when I was 13 was the first backflip that I did, and when I was
13,
and that sounds crazy, but like now there's like 6-year-olds doing backflips.
So wild.
It
has moved on, isn't it?
It has, yeah.
Actually, an insane ride. I mean, you must have been. You've obviously seen that for yourself as well. Like you say, 6-year-olds doing backflips. What's going on? It's just gone mad.
I think about like one trick in particular, a tail whip, where you kick the bike and it does a spin around and then you catch it again, and that took me 2 years of bloody stitched up shins, and
honestly, it took you 2 years to learn that. Because that is like the bread and butter of a slope. You know, one of the tricks that's just a normal trick in slopestyle, right?
Yeah, and now kids are doing it like way. It's like, I swear, they go on social media, they watch 100 different people do a tail whip, and before they even try it, they've figured out how it's done. It's already ingrained in their brain.
So were you in the era, like when you were coming up, did you guys have foam pits to practice on, or was it more just like find a loose jump, like pile up some dirt and hope it's soft?
It was just starting. Foam pit was definitely a thing, but not a popular thing, and I knew that if I wanted to learn how to do a backflip, that I would need to do it safely. I was never the kid to just risk it all and yank a backflip and risk landing on my head.
You weren't even at that age. You were pretty. Well, no, because most sort of 13-year-olds don't really care. But you did. You took care of that. You knew that. You know.
Yeah, I guess subconsciously, I was like, this would be a smart thing to do, to get a foam pit. So I remember my best friend at the time, Mark Stevens. We went to Toronto. So I grew up in Toronto, just an hour north, and we found in the phone book, this is when you open the phone book to find business directories, and we looked up foam companies, and we found Foam Mattress and Pillow Limited or something like that. And so we called and we asked if they had any scrap foam, and they said, yep, we get rid of them in 500-pound bales. So they'll make their mattress, they'll cut the shape of it, and then there's all these crazy, amazing pieces of foam that they put into. When I was 13 years old,
this perfect foam.
That's for sure going to save my neck. and then so we picked up. I remember we built a 20 by 20 plywood box, pretty much. Put a 5-foot kicker into it, and we bought 4 or 5 of these scrap foam bales.
No way.
Yeah, and it was a flat roll-in, I remember, and we had to pedal from 300 or 400 feet away. Every single run that we did in the foam pit, we had to pedal down this flat road, and that was where I learned backflips.
And that's where the progression started,
that's where it started, yeah.
And then at what point did you say, okay, I want to start competing at this? Like, you know, I feel like, because a lot of the times you have that, like you have a friend where you're like, yeah, I'm down to do some flips or whatever, but there's actually a big step to go from riding at your local dirt jumps or skate park to saying. And
I would say more in the world of freeride, right? Like, sort of definitely. Kids growing up doing downhill, I'd imagine you're always going to try and race, but like freeride or slopestyle, I don't know, it feels like you're enjoying riding. It always feels like, especially in Canada, I don't know, but you're sort of enjoying riding bikes more, not always with a vision of putting it on the start line and competing with us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, luckily we had a really grassroots event called Havoc Jam, and it was in my local town, and there was actually quite a few known athletes that have come from that little Havoc Jam era. Logan Pete was one of them who would win all the time. Frankie Vass, Matt McDuff, Mike Gray, who's a BMXer, a pro BMXer. So there was a small crew of us that did sort of build from this little competition scene.
That's
and
mad,
it was so grassroots that it was welcoming. For us to go from like not knowing anything about competing to going in our first competition, but
it wasn't too stressful sort of thing.
No, not really. It was more of like a show.
Yeah.
But we did build some competitive relationships there. Of course. For sure. Yeah. And but it didn't start for me until I went to my first professional competition, which was when I was 16.
And that was, you turned professional at 16. You started to.
I would say I didn't.
No, you were competing in professional. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've done this Havoc Jam a few times. I've won it maybe once or twice, and I think I'm ready to go and play with the big names now. Let's
so where
go
was
and
that
see.
at?
So this was in 2009, and it was at Winter Park, Colorado, when Crankworx used to have a stop there. It was called Crankworx, Colorado. And that was one of, they had Crankworx in Whistler, and they had Crankworx in Colorado. And so this was like, Whistler was such a big, iconic event. It seemed overwhelming, but Colorado was like maybe a little under the radar.
And I guess you'd have still been in Toronto at that time.
I was.
So you were on the other side of the country.
Exactly.
And
so we turned it into a family trip. My mom and brothers and my best friend, Mark Stevens, the guy I built the foam pit with, he actually came with me, and we did our first, international or professional competition. And I lasted 30 minutes in practice until I over-rotated a backflip and got a concussion.
I've ramped it a bit.
And altitude sickness.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Did you stretch it out without achieving sickness and a concussion?
It's like one of those movies where everyone's stoked on the way out, family trip, and then on the way back, like no one's talking.
That's exactly what it was. For real though, like I showed up. First of all, the course had a crazy, and this is why I say slopestyle has a bit of downhill in it, because the first feature on course was this like vertical rock face that went into an elevated corkscrew, and then it went into the first drop. So you needed 2 brakes on your bike, and I know it sounds funny, but I never even had 2 brakes on my bike.
No, what's all that about? I can't get my head around anyone riding a bike with only one brake.
Yeah, well, the front brake gets in the way, like when you don't need it, and you're just like on flat ground and you're doing jumps, like it just, when you're doing bar spins, is in the way. So I showed up to this thing and walked the course, and I was like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. I can't even ride this. Like if I ride this, I could die.
Oh, it was really like that. It really opened your eyes, did it?
So we went into Denver, found a bike shop that sold a front brake. I remember they only had the nicest brake at the time. It was like a $400 or $500 brake, and my rear brake was just like a piece of junk. And I had this expensive front brake to save my life, and didn't even ride that feature. Started lower down on the course, just pedaling in, getting, like, you need to feel good. You need something that makes you feel confident, and if you can go in a competition and land a trick pretty early on, then that helps you go into the next feature and work on your next trick. And so I thought, all right, my backflip, like I got this dialed. These jumps are 5 times bigger than anything I've ever ridden.
Were they that much bigger?
Good to go. Yeah, maybe not 5,
but a lot bigger than anything you'd ever come across. Oh, is that right?
For sure.
So it's pretty wild then, isn't it? That turning up and like, oh shit.
Yeah, big jump. So, 16 years old. Dropped in, pulled for a backflip, pulled too hard, over rotated, landed on my back, smacked my head on the ground, instant concussion, went down to the clinic. They're like, you have altitude sickness as well.
Oh my God! Thanks for manning up and admitting that though.
They put me on an oxygen tank.
It's getting bad. In an oxygen tent, did you say?
They gave me an oxygen tank that has like a hose that feeds my nostrils.
Like a diver.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly, like literally like a diver. So I'm so embarrassed at this point. Like I'm finally riding with all these athletes I've looked up to for years, and I'm with them, and I'm planning to ride the same competition with them, but instead I'm on the sidelines, and I got a concussion and this oxygen tank. So that's how it all started for me, really. Like I wasn't great at the beginning.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because I think you, throughout your career, you are known as like the most dialed rider. Like super training, was that kind of a fork where you're like, if I'm going to continue, I'm going to put a ton of work into this?
No. I think that's just subconsciously always with me. I'm like, I need to make sure that it's gonna work. I can't, like, I know what it feels like to hit the ground, and a lot of people hit the ground a lot.
Yeah.
Unless you're super cautious and you weigh all the risks.
Well, that is interesting, because I think on the outside, it feels like when you watch slopestyle, you're like, oh, those dudes are crazy. They're just taking this insane risk, but it's not
so
really
calculated. I think because I've also raced downhill. I raced downhill in 2020 and 2021.
That's right. I remember that.
And I remember thinking that it's a finer line. I thought that the risk was higher to ride slopestyle, and I thought that racing downhill was going to be. I knew it would be gnarly, but I thought that maybe it would be a little bit mellower or like easier, but after doing it, there's no way. Like the edge between staying on your bike and staying off your bike is way finer than slopestyle. Yeah. When you're at the top.
Well, speaking for myself, absolutely not. I know, because it's probably maybe like you feel, but racing downhill, I mean, like you're not going to win if you crash. So you kind of got to avoid, and even a big mistake will blow it for you. So to me, you're always somewhat behind. I don't know. I mean, there's parts of a track you'd take risk, but again, I never, like you, did you ever feel like you were really taking, occasionally, but not top to bottom, it wasn't a risk, right?
I think I was really similar to you when I raced downhill. Like, I don't like feeling out of control.
No.
And so
you can't be out of control. You can't be out of control in a slopestyle event,
I think it's just interesting because the perception of slopestyle and tricks is just like, these guys are just hucking themselves and they don't know what's going on.
For sure.
Well, actually, speaking of that, tell me about your first experience at Rampage. I want to come back to the Crankworx stuff, but
my first experience at Rampage was gnarly.
That, Brett?
That was in 2012. That was my first year. I would say that was my first year being a professional athlete. First year turning heads, proving to people.
No oxygen tanks.
No oxygen tanks, finally.
Done with those.
Yeah.
No more altitude sickness.
Yeah, so from 2016 to 2012, like, I started from the bottom with little experience and climbed my way up, and at 2012 I finally started doing well and I started podiuming events.
So it took you a while, right?
Yeah, I started getting sponsors, and it's so funny because Rampage and slopestyle are two completely different things, but they used to be part of the same world tour, the Freeride Mountain Bike World Tour.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And Rampage used to be the last stop on the Freeride World Tour. So if you got enough points through all of the slopestyle competitions in the year, you'd earn a spot at Rampage. So I was young, still inexperienced, never owned a downhill bike. And I remember sitting down with Cam McCall once and us realizing that I might get an invite and how crazy that would be. And I remember just talking about it with him, and he's like, "Hey, you got it. Like, it'll be all good." And it happened. It ended up, we were joking earlier in the year, if it were going to happen. And then the year went on and it did happen. My invite came and I thought, holy cow.
Did you? I was
like, I need to get a downhill bike. So I get on the phone with my sponsor. Hey, I need a downhill bike. They send me my first downhill bike. I kind of practice in time. Think I know what's coming.
Can you explain like the difference between slopestyle and Rampage, and just like, I think most of us have probably heard of it, but like, paint a bit of a picture.
So slopestyle is super groomed and like very perfected, and you almost don't need to do anything. You drop in, you don't touch your brake, you don't crank typically, and you clear the jumps and you do the whatever.
It's the perfect environment, right?
It's perfect, yeah.
It's built for what you're doing.
And Rampage is, you have to build your perfect environment, but even at that, you can't, because especially in 2012, there's not really any water on the mountain to make anything perfect.
Yeah, it's come a long way.
This is like gambling downhill, extreme downhill riding.
Extreme.
And you better have ridden a downhill bike, and you've better grown up in mountains and know terrain and exposure. And I grew up in flat farm field, Ontario.
I'd imagine then you've been riding hardtails, you're on a downhill bike for the first time, and you're in the biggest mountains or looking at the biggest terrain you've ever been to ride at Rampage. What was that like a pretty daunting prospect then? Was it pretty scary that first time you rocked up?
Yeah.
Was it? Really? Overwhelming almost or not?
Yeah, I almost went home.
Did you really?
Yeah, I showed up.
Man, no way.
I showed up. I remember they do like a scout day, so everyone has to go and look at the mountain. No one can start building on the first day, and I was looking at what I was gonna compete on and thought, I'm gonna kill myself. and not only that,
shouldn't laugh, but
not only that, I thought everyone else was gonna kill themselves. I was concerned for everyone. I remember
this thing should be canceled.
I was like, seriously, like, that was how I was thinking. And I remember at the time I remember looking at Tyler McCall's line that he had coming off the top, and it crept down this. There's like literally a cliff. And his line goes down the cliff, and there's like 100, 200 foot exposure on the right, and he's gonna come and like land and get caught by a little 2-foot path that he scratched into the mountain. I remember being so concerned for him, because if he didn't make that pad, he's going down that massive cliff.
Yeah.
But that, I think, that was me not knowing downhill bikes and knowing what they're capable of and what people are capable of too, because I never experienced that.
So you really turned up at Rampage that raw, the first Rampage. You had no idea what was capable of being done on a downhill bike, because they're completely...
I was as green as it gets.
It's mad, isn't it, that?
Yeah,
huh?
it was bad, yeah.
To sit here now and hear you say that.
But I got my dig crew. We took the easiest line down the mountain. I remember I stuck to the Rider's Ridge, which is like, it's now like considered the hiking path. And like that's how people hike up and down. Yeah, but I took that as my run, and every day I put myself in those shoes and got out to the event and tried to be a little better each day. And try to get a little more comfy with it each day. And
was it stressful for you, Brett? Like, did you wake up in the morning dreading the fact you're going up the mountain, or did you manage to get your head around it then? And like, it sounds to me like you worked out how to go forwards with it, even if it wasn't a massive rate of knots.
Oh man, I don't think I slept very much.
Honestly, it was that wild.
Yeah, it was. Oh. It was gnarly. But I eventually I got.
Oh really? That
I got my shit together, and we made it happen, and I wrote, and I'm so happy I did that, because for the first 2 or 3 days of that first Rampage, I considered walking off that mountain and flying home.
Because it's the easiest thing to do.
It was the easiest thing to do.
You, doesn't it? Yeah, that pressure, right? It's pressure.
Yeah, and when your safety and your like livelihood is on the line, or you believe that it is. So that was really gnarly. But we got through it, and I did my first Rampage then, and we were actually watching it last year. We were watching my very first run, and it was so funny because the run was so bare bones that I remember Richie Schley was commentating, and he's like, all right, so we're gonna be looking for speed, style, amplitude, like as I'm starting my run, and he's like halfway through, he's like, yeah, like I don't know about you, I don't remember who the other commentator was, but he's like, yeah, it's pretty uneventful so far.
Oh my God!
And he wasn't wrong. It was pretty uneventful.
It's like you're on there being like, this is the most insane thing anyone's ever done. I'm probably gold medal on this one. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
So it's interesting to me that you can go from that, right? Like 2012 first Rampage, like, picking your way down, and then you win in 2018, and I feel like it's kind of the same with the slopestyle. Like, what is that process like for you, and like what is the motivation? Like, are you super competitive? Are you just like, I just want to win this thing? Like,
no, Rampage was something. Slopestyle, yes, I was like, I can win all these contests, and I'm gonna train so that I can do that. And then every year at the end of the year, Rampage would come around. And I had a lot of respect for it because of that first year and because of my lack of knowledge and experience on a downhill bike. But one year after the next, I got slightly more comfortable with my downhill bike. I spent more time riding the bike throughout the season, so that by the time I got to Rampage, I was more comfy, and I would practice tricks that I could do on the slopestyle course, but on my downhill bike, so that I could do it at Rampage. And I just really climbed the ladder. And I know you said that's not that much time from 2012 to 2018, but
6 years.
It felt like when you're living that lifestyle, like it did feel really long.
Mm-hmm.
Did it? And obviously, you're packing a lot in, right? I guess you're training hard most days. What is like training like to learn, say, a new slopestyle trick? And then also, what does that require for you to go to Rampage? Because it's different to throw those tricks on the bike you were used to in a downhill bike, right? It must be entirely different, isn't it, or not?
Yeah, it is. It's much harder, but...
Is it?
It's funny. I mean, I think it's easier.
Is it?
Like,
why?
The more experience I got on my downhill bike and the more comfy I got...
bit more room for error.
Then... Well, it's just the riding level in a slopestyle competition is so crazy. You have to do the craziest things now. And And Rampage, you don't do those things. You do like 4 steps back, but off a bigger feature. So as you get comfy with a downhill bike,
raw environment, big mountain.
As you get comfy with your downhill bike, you do those tricks in that environment, and they're kind of easy. I didn't say that.
How long does it take to learn a trick? Because I hung out with Tom Page. You know Tom Page is the FMX rider, and he told me that he would do 2 3-hour sessions a day. 3 hours in the morning, he would break for lunch, then he'd go back and do another 3 hours. And I think it took him 18 months on that schedule to learn how to do a bike flip. Like, I mean, he was the most innovative FMX rider of all time. But like, does that ring true for you? Is that something, like it was an absolute obsession, a process to him to learn these new tricks? Is that how it is for you in being one of the world's leading slopestyle riders?
Maybe well, first I'd like to correct you and say that I'm not anymore, but
you're still pretty good, mate.
I would say that I wasn't as hard on myself as that. I would go with the flow a little bit more, but I knew the goal that I had in mind.
And so, like, talking a little bit about slopestyle, it's interesting that you say you were super competitive in that arena. And so maybe take me through, like, from when you were winning these Crankworx World Tours, like, I know you were going for the Triple Crown, like, from there to saying, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like,
slopestyle?
Yeah.
Because when did you actually officially retire, Brett?
This is where it's going to get hard to talk about, because I'm still learning about how everything unfolded and why.
It's
really interesting. But I stopped competing in slopestyle. My last competition was here in 2019.
Right on.
And I almost didn't drop into the competition.
Honestly?
Yeah, I decided 10 minutes before the contest at the top that I was going to drop in.
And why was that?
Because everyone fired me up. I was always the last rider to drop, or one of the last riders to drop, and I saw the effort and the care that the other competitors put into their runs. And that fueled me to drop in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Because what were you feeling?
I think I would say after I won Rampage in 2018, I reached all my goals, and I didn't have any more.
You won 7 Crankworx, right?
Yeah, like I won everything there was to win.
Yeah.
And, although I didn't win Joyride like 6 times like Semenuk, I still won this one, which was a big deal.
Yeah, you ticked it off, mate.
Tons of second places, but was just really hard on myself. And I got to the point where I questioned like whether I was doing it for the right reasons, I think. And I needed a step back from it. It's still really hard to talk about. And
it sounds like, just don't know. Like, obviously, a ride at that level, it's almost your entire life, right?
I had my, like, from, as I said, 10 years old until a couple of years ago, I was just chasing winning slopestyle and freeride. And then all of a sudden I took the blinders off.
Yeah. Was there a moment that opened up the world a bit?
Yeah. And it, like, to be honest, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And it was really hard, and it's still really hard. And I'm still learning so much about myself. Like, I'm realizing that I didn't really know myself.
Yeah, sure.
Because when you're born until you're 10 years old, you don't know who you are. You learn about your perceived world and what you like to do. And then from 10 until, now, 30 years old, 20 years, you're like, I was trying to be who I am now.
Right.
It was your identity.
And so when you take the blinders off and you wonder, like, who am I? What do I love? Who am I without this competition ego? Who am I as a human being on planet Earth what is this world? Wait a sec. What are all these problems with the world? Why wasn't I taught this? How didn't I? And it's been really hard. Like I since stopping competing, like I've since developed anxiety and panic. And
have you, since you stopped?
Since I stopped, like and
I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
I know. It's like right. I was the most fearless when I was doing what I was doing, and then it kind of like all just, I think, just human characteristics.
It's like your armor came off.
It seeped in. Yeah, I let everything in. I decided to become a real human being.
Yeah.
And with that came learning about all the sometimes ugly human characteristics that we go through in 2023. So
for sure,
I've really made the initiative to learn about who I am without this mountain bike thing, while trying to keep my sponsors, because I've identified that I love mountain biking and I need mountain bike in my life, and I need to do something that fills my cup.
Yeah.
Have you found that yet?
I'm still searching for it.
Yeah.
I know that you're super artistic and creative, like especially with the video parts. You've had some of the most iconic video parts. Is it, now that you have kind of started to transition, taking the blinders off, open your perspective a bit, have you found a little piece? Like, what have been the things that you've tried? Like, is it still just riding with friends, like going back to bare bones? Is it, creating lines in the yard? Like, what have been the things that have been the most interesting?
Or is it going surfing? For 5 days on your own, like you just did, right? It sounded like a good time.
Going surfing on my own for 5 days is pretty good.
Sounds like a dream, mate, to be quite honest.
That was pretty fun. Crankworx was just starting to kick off, and I headed out to Tofino for a few days.
Is that part of the experience, though, of like you say, trying to discover yourself a bit?
I don't know. I think I don't know anything other than winning competitions.
Yeah, sure.
And that is an ugly truth.
Yeah, no, and it's difficult, the other side of it.
It's so funny because I feel like when I stopped racing downhill, I had like a really similar experience. I remember going, ironically, I was at Crankworx in Leger, and I started my downhill run, and then like halfway down the downhill run, I was like, I would rather be anywhere in the world but right here on this bike.
I feel you.
I had 10 years of World Cup downhill like that. I was just doing bad and getting paid, but I needed the money, so I kept going, and I hated it. And it's absolutely crushed me.
It's so wild too, because like when you have this singular focus, you're not thinking about like, what am I going to do for a job? What I'm going to do? And so like when you talk about that, like there's not only the loss of identity or whatever, but like what I'm going to do for work, like with my sponsors and things like that. So it is, I think that transition as an athlete
I was going to say, is there a bit of you now that would like to step away, say, for 2 years, for instance, not have a bicycle in your life? Because you said, you're trying to keep your sponsors. In my mind, you won Rampage last year. You ain't got nothing to worry about. You're Brett Rheeder. You can take 5 years out, come back. That's true. That's how I see it. But you feel that pressure.
Yeah, I feel that pressure, and it's just ingrained into me. I know my sponsors probably aren't thinking that, but it's me like needing to achieve this insanely high goal.
Right.
And if it's not going to be with competition, then what is it going to be?
Yeah. Well, can you?
But I realized that I've been operating with a bit of fear. That has come in, and that's what makes me think about these things like, I don't want to. Like, what am I going to do if I don't have my mountain bike sponsors? Am I going to retire? Like, what am I going to do for a living? But then when I was in Tofino, not on social media and not checking my emails for 5 days, I realized that I've just been operating in fear mode.
Totally.
And that's not how I built my athlete career. That's not how I got where I am. That's not how I built title. That's not how I built my house. That's not how I did any of these crazy feats. And
you're in a bit of a transitional period, I reckon. Do you know what I mean? That's right, though, isn't it? And it's like finding. You got to find that path to happiness again, which was the last 20 years was winning slopestyle events, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Not happiness, but like I don't know. It feels to me like
it was my purpose.
Yeah, purpose.
Right.
That's right. Exactly, mate. And that happens to a lot of professional sportsmen.
Yeah.
But you can still be a professional rider. It's just you don't need to compete anymore, right? I mean,
it's interesting
so many
because
for you.
like you took that time off, but then came back to Rampage. So what made you say I want to do this event again?
Wasn't single Crown Forks coming in, was it?
Oh man, my bike was built with a single crown fork the year before.
Was it?
Yeah, when Seminuk got all
Was
that.
it?
Yeah. And I'd like to say for the record that 2012, my first year, I showed up with a single crown and did a bar spin.
No way!
So I'm just saying it for the record. Well, I would say that I didn't feel like I closed the chapter. I knew I won, and then I came second the year after. I didn't have a good enough reason to ride the year after, but I did anyways, just because I didn't know how to let go. 2020, COVID shut everything down. 2021, I was going to go, and I got injured just before, so I couldn't go, and that was the single crown boom.
Okay.
And I just signed with Commensal earlier that year, and and they've never had a good result at Rampage. They never won a Rampage. And I thought, am I going to let like the sponsor, having my sponsors push me to do this competition again? Is that a good enough reason? No, definitely not. So what is the better reason? Like, what is the reason to do it? And I realized like, okay, well, I'm a new person now. Like I went through a lot through COVID and like changing as a human.
Totally.
And I got rid of most of my competition ego, and I became like a really pure version of myself, like someone who I really want to be. Mm-hmm. And I thought, can I go back and compete at Rampage as this new person without pressure? And can I almost expect not to win and challenge myself to be okay?
Because that wouldn't be easy for you. Yeah, I was going to say that wouldn't be easy for you to go there, not thinking you're going to have a chance of winning it.
But if I'm going to retire and I'm going to not ride, like this is sort of what I need to do. This is my planning. This is my preparation for leaving the event. So I decided, not from my sponsors, not from the prize money, but from me within, that I wanted to go and close the chapter on a really good, positive note. And really share people that they don't have to have so much pressure. Mm-hmm. And this was like such a far off concept when I was thinking about it, but I thought, okay, let's go and we'll just do it. Like I know, can you do it? Do you have the skill? Yes. Do you have the sickest bike you've ever had for it? Yes. Do you have an amazing dig crew? Yes.
How'd you put the time in?
Do you have a good attitude for it? Yes.
Did you go there prepared though? Like as in prepared enough to win it? How'd you put the time in, the training in?
Yeah.
You did? So it was all in place kind of? It was just a mental shift?
Yeah, it was a mental shift. And I had competed in a competition just before it. I actually didn't plan on it, but I went to Utah a month before Rampage just to ride and get used to that, because I hadn't been there since 2019.
Right. Yeah.
It's like years of not being in that area, and I was always used to being there every year. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna dig, I'm gonna ride just for fun. So I went down, and it was 45 degrees Celsius every single day.
Yeah, it's
and
like 100. Give me those
it was like 113.
Oh my god!
And it was crazy.
Oh my goodness!
And so we went there, and I just thought, like, what am I doing here? We're like kind of filming for this project, which did turn out really good. It was a story of my build back to Rampage, but we're there and we're digging and we're riding. Well, there was a massive rainstorm the day before we got there that washed out everything. Like when you go to Utah and you ride freeride, you need to build everything you ride, or you need to ride the stuff that has been built by people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when it rains there, it pours and it washes out all the landings and takeoffs. So everything we went to ride had to be fixed. But the problem was the daytime, and you do that, you dig through the day. so that you can ride when it's cool in the mornings and the night.
Right.
But the day was 47 degrees.
That's outrageous, right?
So we were digging early in the morning and then late at night, and it was so unproductive, and we thought,
tough.
Okay, we're here. There's a competition happening like on the way home. We're not making any progress here. Should we just go?
Use someone else's line.
So should we just go, and this might be a good way? But I still had a bit of that expectation. I was trying to shed it off as best possible. Like, don't worry about it. Like, stop worrying about winning. Just go.
Yeah.
So we went, and
that feels like that'd be a massive thing in your head to get past as well.
It was.
To actually turn up, maybe not going to win it.
Totally.
It really hard, right, for you.
And I won.
You gotta respect that, brother. That was insane, right?
Does that run like stick out? Like, do you just remember it? Were you like, can you take us through it? Like, how did it feel?
It was honestly, it was fine. It was no different than it had been in years past. I just didn't care.
You really didn't care either.
I really didn't care.
You could feel it on the bike, like you were just.
Yeah, I knew the risk was there. I had respect for the risk. But, I mean, you just do this checklist. You're like, have I prepared? Yes. Am I healthy? Yes. Do I have good intentions? Yes. Am I here right now for this thing? Yes. Okay, then go for it.
That is.
Yeah, and if you get injured and you crash, then there's a learning lesson somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That is meant to happen.
Brett, I
was going to say no.
I was just going to say I did that competition, and that was my preparation for Rampage, which was good preparation, because we did go to Utah. I did get to ride some lines, barely. Almost got heat stroke. Went and won a competition. It was like the perfect preparation for the event. And then went to Rampage.
And won it.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah.
I wanted to I want to talk about a little bit about like some of the other things that you do, because you mentioned it in passing, but you're an architect and you designed in your own house. Like,
I've never been called an architect, but it's been rumored. I suppose I was a little bit for a brief period.
Where did that come from? How did that work? Like, were you just super into it?
In high school, first of all, I wasn't good in school and I didn't like school. I liked the elective courses like woodworking. I remember building mountain bike jumps and furniture. Welding was another course, and then architecture was one that I really liked, and that was just a fun one for me. We got to learn computer program to design a house, and I remember when I was young and doing that, I remember killing it designing the house that I lived in. Like, I replicated.
Really?
Yeah, and so and didn't think anything of it. Got out of high school, started competing mountain biking, and then started making enough money where I wanted to buy a house in British Columbia because I lived in Toronto. Mm-hmm. So I needed to be close to the mountains. I kept looking for real estate. Nothing was very interesting, like anything that had good property with a slope, all the things for jumps. Had like an old shitty house on it. Yeah. And I was just, for a lot of money. And I finally started doing the math and thought like, okay, well, I could buy this property and could I build a house? And so I decided that yes, this is the cheapest way to do it.
Right.
At the time, not anymore, but at the time it was. And so I started sketching on napkins and I got a ruler. But then I realized, I was like, wait a sec, I know these computer programs.
No way.
Yeah.
So you actually took care of it on a computer, a proper architectural drawing that you handed to someone who then built your house?
Well, I wouldn't say, like, I downloaded Google SketchUp. But yeah, I dimensioned it, and I drew 5 houses before building mine. And it was just a really fun, rewarding process.
Amazing. No, I was going to say, are you enjoying this process at the moment? Is it tough for you, like you say?
It's tough. I've turned a corner though. Like as I said, I was having panic attacks and a lot of anxiety and just feeling like kind of clueless, hopeless.
A bit lost almost.
Very lost. Yeah, I was a lost puppy for a really long time, and I've turned a corner and
no temptation to get
now.
Because you could put it all right by becoming Brett Rheeder, super slopestyle rider again. Is it? You know, is
yeah,
it?
totally.
You know what I mean? Is it not?
I don't.
Because you're only 29.
Though.
You could easily go back into it. Is it not? That's not something you're going to do.
I don't think so. No.
Don't you?
I could do it, and I don't want to. I don't think that at this moment in time, I don't think that I would have the best intentions or reason to do it. And so I'm not doing it strictly because of that. For now.
For now. These things can change.
And the other piece of you that I think is really interesting that a lot of us don't do is that you started your own bike component brand.
I did.
So how did that? Tell me about kind of the founding story there.
Okay, so when I was when I was riding for Trek, I was always riding Bontrager components, and all of a sudden one year in a contract renewal, it didn't specify that I had to ride the components anymore. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll search around and try to find a sponsor. So I searched around, I asked all the companies, and at the time I was winning all the contests, and no one really wanted to pay what I thought was reasonable, or like just for me to represent another brand didn't feel right for what was being offered. So I thought, wait a sec, could I? Because I loved carbon bars.
You love carbon bars?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Really? In what respect?
Well,
the feel of them?
For a slopestyle bike, just the weight. You just want the lightest bike you can get. And I was always riding a dual suspension slope bike, which is a little heavier, and I was competing against people that had the little like lightweight hardtails. So I was always trying to get my bike as light as possible. These bars are super light, and I was down with them, and I had really good luck with carbon bars. So I thought, could I make 100 of my own carbon bars as like the Brett Rheeder bar?
Lay them up.
and sell them, and that like just 100 bars, I would be making what I want.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's an interesting idea. Like, I like it. Maybe I'll start looking into it a bit. And then from there, I thought, okay, well, am I going to ride someone else's stem? Okay, so I guess I got to build a stem. And so I spent some time thinking about, okay, I'm going to have my own bar stem. And then after a while, I thought, am I going to ride someone else's seat and seat post?
You were off.
I was like, I guess I might as well
start pretend
do this. But then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do my own like bar stem seat post. This is like starting to feel like a company, not like a signature line of components. Maybe it's worth starting a company. So then I started toying with this idea and started trying to come up with names for the company. And at the time, I'd started drawing designs and figuring and creating lists of what I wanted from my bike, and talking to suppliers and people that were helping me prototype this stuff. And from that point, I thought, all right, well, if I'm going to start a company, then I need to sponsor athletes, because I know I'm not going to be the guy that pushes the brand forever. Like, this is going to be a group effort. So I started paying athletes.
That's hilarious.
After I came up with the name, title, and the logo, I started paying athletes.
Before you'd sold stuff at this point?
2 years before.
Come on, Brett. He is committed.
It's supposed to be money in your pocket. It ended up being money out of your pocket.
There's a lot of money going out of my pocket.
Oh my God. Was that a horrendous feeling? Or?
Well, I know what it costs to sponsor athletes.
Sure, yeah.
But I also know the value of having a brand on an athlete's jersey or helmet.
Yeah.
And at that, a new company of a logo no one's ever seen before.
Sure.
So I thought that if I could do this without fear, as we were talking about earlier, this was like that was like I was training to win Rampage slopestyle contests and dumping money into sponsoring athletes and prototyping components. So yeah, from there it was a lot, but it was a lot of work. The workload that I put on myself to do that was like pretty destructive, I would say.
Not a good experience particularly.
No, like it for sure.
I was going to say if you...
Well, okay, it was rewarding, and I'm so happy that I did that.
Yeah.
Because it's turned into a thing that we've supported athletes, and we've built trails, and we have had a slopestyle competition that we did for a few years.
So it's been a good payoff for the investment, really.
So, and I didn't start this thing for to make money. Like, I'm being a professional mountain biker. I started it to help people.
Yeah.
I started to like build a next generation of the sport and to learn.
Yeah. Well, I think that you can tell that, like, because most companies don't even start thinking about sponsoring athletes, building trails, sponsoring competitions, right? Like that was part of the brand from the beginning.
It was, yeah. So
then I think as we like kind of wrap up, one of the other things I think is interesting is that you, along that same thing, like kind of mentoring other athletes and really yourself developing that next generation of slopestyle athlete. Mm-hmm. What has that been like?
It's been good. I can do a better job at it though. And I see the vision of how it needs to be done, and I really want to do it, and I think that is going to be a bit of my future.
So what do people get wrong about it? And like when you say that, because I can see the gears turning, like what is your vision with that? What would it look like to do it really well?
Well, there's an accessibility problem with the world of slopestyle and free riding, and it's just used as a marketing tool for the rest of the industry. So you'll notice most companies that sponsor these athletes don't actually sell products in it. But they don't sell products in it because there's not a big enough customer base.
Right.
Because it's too dangerous.
Right.
Because it's not safe enough. Because there's not enough parks. So I really think this thing might actually, slopestyle and freeride could dip a bit, but.
Do you think that might happen, do you?
I would say with wishful thinking, no.
I say that within mind.
There needs to be more competition. When there's no competition, it becomes stale, which doesn't inspire people to do it.
There's not enough, is there? Really,
so I really think that
high end.
There needs to be more people being introduced at a young age about the dirt jump bike.
Totally.
And at that, when they buy their first dirt jump bike and their helmet and their pads and their title bars, they go to the local jump park.
Yeah.
Or they go to a specialty jump park that you buy a membership to. It's just a lot of public bike parks don't offer what slopestyle needs.
Yeah, the infrastructure is not there.
No, that's right.
Because
not many
public,
do, right? Yeah.
Because it's public, it's got to be safe. So there has to be a new way of introducing the sport to more people, and I think once it is, there's no reason it's not going to be like.
Have you noticed
every other sport?
Yeah,
I feel like there's been a bit of a shift, really, because like obviously Canada for me when I was racing downhill a little while ago, but it was always free ride from here, and it was there's you, Seminar, no end of mad list of high-end Canadian freeriders, but that's changed, and now Canada's won 2 in the downhill World Cup, and it seems like it is, with Finn and Jackson Goldstone, and it feels like that more and more Canadians might be getting into downhill. Is that what do you think about that? You seeing it?
I follow downhill not as much as I do slopestyle, so it's hard. It's hard for me to keep tabs, and I don't keep tabs on downhill as much.
No, that's fair enough.
But yes, I do think that more and more. I think downhill as a whole is growing right now, maybe more than freeride and slopestyle, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Like even me, I'm like, I get excited when I see the race results, and I'm wondering who's won the next or the last race and who's been podium. And So
yeah. No, it's good, isn't it? Any high end, like the best in the world, slopestyle or downhill is just unbelievable, isn't it?
It's so exciting. Yeah,
it is. I was
really
privileged this year.
It's amazing to see how far the sport has come.
Yeah,
it's mad.
In the last, I mean, you guys have been around, I think, longer than me, but even for me in the last...
Easy.
Even for me in the last 10 years.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's so true.
No, it's true. It's mad how it's come.
Brett, this has been so good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely enlightening, mate.
Yes,
we could. It's a shame we call it a day because we could chat all day. You're so interested. Yeah, exactly, mate. Thanks very much,
Maybe
Brett.
We'll do another one.
Yeah, we will. We'll get you back, bro.
Yeah, so good.
Thank you very much.